The wind hits you first. Not a cold breeze, not a chill you can shake off. A wall of frozen air that burns your face on contact and turns your breath into a cloud before it even leaves your lips. The sky is the color of old bone. The ground beneath you is stone hard, locked under permafrost that hasn't thawed in centuries. And somewhere out there, past the frozen tree line, something large is moving. This is the Ice Age, and somehow your ancestors not only survived it, they dominated it. For roughly 100,000 years, much of the northern hemisphere was buried under glaciers up to 3 kilometers thick. 3 kilometers, taller than most mountains you've ever seen. Sea levels were more than 150 meters lower than they are today. Because so much of the planet's water was locked into ice, and your ancestors, fully modern humans, Homo sapiens, were living through it. Not heading from and living through it. How? The answer starts not with tools or fire, though both matter. It starts with the brain. The same one you're using right now to read these words. Because during the Ice Age, that brain, already the most complex object in the known universe, was being pushed to its absolute limit. Paleoanthropologist Ian Tattersall of the American Museum of Natural History has spent decades studying this period. What he found isn't a story of brute strength or lucky geography. It's a story of cognitive flexibility, the ability to look at a problem, break it apart, and invent a solution that has never existed before. That capacity, more than any physical adaptation, is what kept your lineage alive. But let's reconstruct what that actually looked like. Imagine you're a member of a band of roughly 25 people. That's the standard group size for hunter-gatherers during the last glacial maximum. The coldest peak of the Ice Age around 20,000 years ago. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar's research on social group sizes confirms this. Small, tight-knit bands of 20 to 30 individuals were the basic unit of human survival. Everyone in your group knows everyone else. You've been together long enough to read each other's moods without speaking. It is midwinter. The temperature at night is dropping below minus 20 degrees Celsius. The ground is frozen solid. The megafuna, the massive animals that share this landscape, have either migrated south or gone dormant. And your group is running low on stored food. The first thing you do is not panic. You've been through this before. Our grandparents survived winters like this. Their grandparents did too. That knowledge is passed down in story and ritual and the careful imitation of elders who know exactly what to do when the cold comes. You have shelter, not a cave necessarily. That's a common misconception. Archaeological evidence shows that Ice Age humans used a wide variety of shelters. At the site of Mezhyrich in modern-day Ukraine, researchers discovered the remains of shelters built from mammoth bones and tusks, likely covered with hides. These structures date to around 15,000 years ago. They're not primitive. They were engineered. The builders understood weight distribution, insulation, and wind resistance. They understood, in other words, that survival is a design problem. Your clothing is doing something similar. Ice Age people didn't just wrap themselves in fur. They tailored it. Archaeological finds from Sungir, a site in Russia dating to around 34,000 years ago, revealed the burial of an older man and 2 children dressed in clothing decorated with thousands of mammoth ivory beads. The bead placement tells researchers like Olga Salfer and James Adavasio exactly where seams were, at the wrists, the ankles, the collar. These were fitted, insulating, layered garments, not draped skins. Actual clothing designed to trap body heat in exactly the right places. The needle made that possible. The bone needle, with a hole punched at one end for sinew thread, appears in the archaeological record around 50,000 years ago, and fundamentally changed what it meant to survive cold. You can't sew a seam without one. You can't close a collar. You can't keep wind out. That small piece of bone, barely the length of your finger, may be one of the most important inventions in human history. But clothing and shelter alone don't keep you fed. Hunting during the Ice Age was nothing like modern hunting. The animals were different. The landscape was different. The stakes were completely different. A single mammoth, if your group could bring one down, could provide hundreds of kilograms of meat, fat, bone marrow, hide, and material for tools and shelter. Fat was the critical macronutrient, not protein. Fat, because in extreme cold your body burns through calories at a terrifying rate just to stay warm. And fat is the most calorie-dense food available. Your ancestors understood this instinctively, even if they didn't have words for calories. They sought the fattiest parts of every animal. The marrow, the brain, the organs, before anything else. Mammoth hunting required coordination on a scale that stretches the imagination. These animals could weigh up to 10 tons. They had tusks more than 4 meters long. You couldn't simply chase one down and stab it. What Ice Age hunters appear to have done, based on kill sites like those at Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic, is use the landscape itself as a weapon, driving animals toward natural features, cliffs, ravines, boggy ground, frozen riverbanks, getting them stuck or panic or cornered, then working as a coordinated unit to finish what the geography started. That coordination required language, real complex language, the ability to plan, to assign roles, to describe a landscape that isn't in front of you yet, to say, tomorrow we drive them left toward the ridge. Koonugal scientist and archaeologist Thomas Wynne, alongside Frederick Coolidge, has argued that this kind of working memory, holding a future scenario in mind while executing a present action, is distinctly modern. And it shows up in the archaeological record right when humans start surviving conditions that should have killed them. But survival during the Ice Age wasn't just about hunting. It was about knowing what to do when the hunt failed. Your ancestors were phenomenal plant foragers even in winter. They knew which roots could be dug from frozen ground, which tree bark was edible, which mosses and lichens provided what nutrients. They dried meat and fish in warmer months and cached it, buried it in the permafrost, essentially using Ice Age itself as a refrigerator. They stored food for winter the way you store files on a hard drive, deliberately, categorically, with a specific plan for retrieval. They also traded. Long-distance exchange networks during the Ice Age are one of the most underappreciated stories in human prehistory. Shells from the Mediterranean coast have been found at inland sites hundreds of kilometers away. Amber from the Baltic shows up in Central European camps. Specific stone types, flint, obsidian, quartzite, turn up far from their geological origin. This wasn't accidental. These were trade routes, social networks that connected bands across enormous distances and allowed critical resources, including information, to flow between groups. That information sharing may have been the single most important survival technology of all. Imagine your group has had 3 bad hunts in a row. The stored food is getting low. The cold isn't letting up. In a world without trade networks, without allied bands, that situation ends in starvation. But with a web of relationships stretched across the landscape, you send a runner, or go yourself to the next band. 2 days walk away. You have history with them. You've shared meat with them before. You've attended the same seasonal gatherings, heard the same stories, maybe exchanged a child in marriage to cement the alliance. They feed you because they know without needing to say it that one day they'll need the same from you. Anthropologist Polly Weister, whose field research with the Juhonsi people of southern Africa documented exactly these kinds of long-distance reciprocal networks, calls this risk pooling. You spread the risk of local failure across a wide social network, so that no single group ever faces catastrophe alone. Ice Age humans appear to have been doing this for tens of thousands of years. And then there's fire. This seems obvious. Of course they had fire, but what's less obvious is how sophisticated fire management had become by the Ice Age. Evidence from sites across Europe and Asia shows fire hearths positioned specifically for heat efficiency. Centrally located in shelters, surrounded by stone that absorbed heat and radiated it slowly back into the space. Evidence of stored tinder. Evidence of fire starting kits. Not the ability to make fire occasionally and desperately. The ability to maintain fire continuously, strategically, as a managed resource. The Chauvet Cave in southern France, famous for its extraordinary paintings of lions, rhinos, and horses dated to around 36,000 years ago, also contains evidence of deliberate torch use and hearth management deep inside the cave. Hundreds of meters from the entrance in total darkness. These were people stumbling through survival. These were people who controlled their environment well enough to light up the underground and create art. That's the part that should stop you. In the coldest period in the last 100,000 years, with glaciers grinding down mountains and megafauna roaming a landscape, most modern people wouldn't survive for 24 hours in your ancestors were painting. They were decorating the inside of caves with images of such skill and intention that the first modern Europeans to discover them couldn't believe prehistoric humans had made them. They had time, they had stability, they had social structures capable of producing specialists, people whose job at least part of the time was not just to find food but to make meaning, to tell stories, to mark the walls with what mattered. And here's the counterintuitive twist. The Ice Age may not have been purely a crisis. It may have been a crucible. The pressure of extreme cold, extreme scarcity, and extreme distance between groups may have accelerated human innovation, forced the development of exactly the cognitive and social technologies that made Homo sapiens unlike any other species on Earth. The tailored garment, the long-distance trade network, the complex coordinated hunt, the art, the story, the plan, every one of those things was forged in cold. You live in a world where the temperature is regulated, where food is abundant, where survival is, for most people, reading this not a daily question, and yet your body still knows how to shiver, that automatic involuntary muscular response to cold burning calories to generate heat. That evolution built into you because for 100,000 years, shivering was the first line of defense. Your body still craves fat in winter, still experiences the pull of fire, the comfort of a warm enclosed space, the deep social need to be surrounded by people you trust. When things get hard, the Ice Age is over, but it never really left you. You wake up on a cold morning, pull the covers tighter, and feel for just a second reluctant to leave the warmth. That's not weakness, that's 100,000 years of intelligence written in your body, reminding you that the cold is still out there, and that the only way through it has always been the same. Together,